Welcome in, guys. Thank you for attending here, our fresh look into Adobe Journey Optimiser. We're happy to have this webinar alongside Adobe. My name is Sammy Anderson. I'm our marketing manager here at Softcrylic. Throughout the webinar, we're going to have a couple polls pop up, so feel free to answer in those. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A, either or. We'll have a couple minutes at the end to go over them. If there's any questions we don't get to in the webinar, we will follow up with it in the follow-up blog and or via email for all of our attendees today to let you guys know, no matter what, we'll get to it. So if it pops in your head, throw it in. If you have any questions about Softcrylic or our services, you can always reach out info@softcrylic.com. We are happy to chat whenever and whatever you guys need. And with that, I'll pass it back to Jerry and we'll start talking Journey Optimiser. Enjoy the webinar.
Thank you, Sammy. So yeah, I'm Jerry. Hello. I lead the solution architecture group at Softcrylic. Soon there will be Ivan will be joining me, who is a senior product manager at Adobe. We've been working very closely with Ivan on Journey Optimiser, and we thought it would be good for us to kind of open up this discussion and just share a little more detail on what is the reality of standing up a product like that, and the value that we see in it, the room for improvement, and just everything that, from a practitioner, what we have done. So Ivan will be here in a few minutes, but in the meantime, I'll talk a little bit about, I'll give a quick introduction. So just quick agenda. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Softcrylic in case you're new to us. So this will be my sales pitch. Will be quick, but then from there we'll get into Journey Optimiser. I'll give you the overview of the what, how, and why. Basically, what is the capabilities? How do we implement it? And then why do we like it? Why is this such a, in my opinion, a revolutionary step in the way we do marketing automation and customer engagement? And then from there, we'll get into a topic that I hear it all the time, which is about Journey Optimiser and Adobe Campaign. This is not a comparison, but this is more about the reality of how these products should work together or migrate from one to another. Then we'll move into tips and tricks, some of the things that we've seen as practitioners, and give you our recommendations of things to watch out for if you are in the process of implementing Journey Optimiser. And then we'll have enough time for Ivan to talk us through the roadmap. What's coming up? This is a product that has been evolving every few weeks. There's a fun release, a new functionality coming in. So it will be great for you guys to see some of these upcoming things. And then hopefully we'll have enough time for questions at the end. Ivan, were you able to make it?
I'm in. I think you can hear me, right?
I can hear you. I don't see you, but I can
I'm
hear
in on
you.
my. At least I'm in on my phone at the moment. I don't know why. I use Zoom like every single day. Just today decided to die, so I'll figure it out.
It's all good. It's all good. You're good. All right. So Ivan, I'm just gonna kick it off, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about Softcrylic, and then we'll jump. Oh, here you go. I can see you now.
There
and then we can get into others. All right. So Softcrylic, we are a small consulting agency. What I would say the quick, I don't know, the best way to summarize what we do is that we really combine both the best of engineering and data analytics. So we are split among multiple practices. And I used to be part of the data activation team, but recently I started a practice called the Solution Architecture Group, which brings the best of both worlds. So on one hand, we have the enterprise architects that are very hands-on, technical. They understand data, every piece of data. And on the other side, we also have the digital strategists, the folks who can help you in building use cases and processes and help you in putting together the entire engagement model if you're trying to stand up a new marketing technology or trying to enhance what you have. Skipped. Just quickly around the areas that we support, it really depends on your needs, but We have from an analytics, we're an Adobe shop, but also we support Google and others. So anything from data collection to analysis, marketing technology. This is my baby, where anything from the CDP to DMP and anything in between, personalization, marketing automation. And then also we have folks that are specialized in engineering, building your own data lake or helping you in building application engineering. And finally, data visualization and a combination with the data science that allows us to dive further into our data and come up with insights that can lead into ideas that we can activate on. The way that you can engage with us, it varies, but these are the 4 common. So we can come in as a strategic and advisor. You might be in a process, like I said, you want to upgrade your stack, or you want to assess what you're doing today. So we can help you in doing audits, assessments. If you're going through an RFP process, this is something we've been extremely busy doing, helping clients in identifying what is the right technology for them. That's something that we support. End-to-end solution integrator or project delivery, whether it's in any of the fields that we mentioned, from MarTech to analytics and data science. Strategic resourcing. This is where if you have a gap in some of your expertise, or you have folks in your organization leaving and you need some support, this is where we can come in and help, whether it's from a PM perspective or others. And then finally, managed services, white glove type of engagement, where if someone to manage your email or manage your analytics, we have teams that can do that as well. All right, so enough selling of what Softcrylic is. Let's talk a little bit about Journey Optimiser. So what is it at a high level? At a high level, if we think about it, if you're new to Journey Optimiser, I would say it is an email marketing automation system that allows you to create journeys based on data that you feed into it. This is nothing new in terms of marketing automation, but the beauty about it, the way that it's being built, that it's built on top of the Adobe Experience Platform. So in a simple high-level approach, you have your Experience Platform from Adobe is where all your data lives. This can be classified as data sets where it exists in the data lake, but also brought in together into profiles that can be leveraged across the different application services sitting on top of AEP. One of those is Adobe Journey Optimiser. That allows, there's a lot of functionalities that that platform enables. If we are looking under the hood, and this is where I'm always interested, because at a high, as you look at it from the picture of saying, okay, it runs on top of AEP, what does that really mean? How does the data flow? What do I need to do to get it running? Where does it run on segments? How quickly these segments qualify and the resolution of them? So you really need to understand what is under the hood. So I have 2 views of that. I really like this one, what we have on the screen here, because it really describes it shows you the different stages. So first, data. And this is, I think, the critical piece. And we'll talk a little bit with Ivan on the capability of kind of fast pacing or expediting the process of data. This is one of the nice things about AJO Journey Optimiser. But the first step is data, getting this data into the platform. And this is where this can be the data that's coming in from your site, using either, if you already have implemented analytics, whether it's Google or Adobe, you can pipe this data into the platform. Or if you are implementing analytics fresh, like what we've been seeing in many clients going through revamping and migrating, you can use one of Adobe's solutions, which is the Adobe Web SDK or the mobile SDK. The beauty of that, of course, is that it creates the data model and sends it to the platform in what we call the XDM, the Experience Data Model, which has a lot of adds a lot of value. One, it's already feeds into a schema, but two, also talks in the same language that Journey Optimizer understands. Especially this plays a big role when you get into situations you're trying to trigger certain journeys by these signals. But again, going back, data collection, it's coming in, and this is being classified. So there is going to be plenty of time for you to set up this data. It's going to be an important pillar of your implementation. The second piece afterwards, you have the orchestration. So this is where AJO starts, you start exploring AJO, and this is where it's broken into multiple pieces. One is being the journey service. So this is where you will have your data sources, events, actions. You can start light in the beginning and then build on top of those, depending on the complexity. But then you also have your journey designer. This is where you are building the journeys. This is your canvas where you're saying, if someone did this, then send them this message. If we want to split an audience between a push notification and an email, this is all happens within that canvas within the journey designer. And then related to it is the journey reporting. Whenever a journey goes out, you actually have the ability to see things in live on what's happening. And then later you can look at what we call global report that you can see, okay, how did this perform? Who received it? How many bounced? What did they react to, etc. The next step from orchestration is content. How do you create this content, right? We are used to in the past of saying, hey, we have a team that is creating the content outside and we bring it into the email, into the ESP. Well, this is where things are a little more streamlined with Journey Optimizer, where you do have a message designer. It's pretty powerful. It's a message designer for both email, in-app messaging, push notification. Even you can do your SMS creation of messages, all within the same designer. But the beauty is it hooks into this DAM, the Digital Asset Manager, in this case called Assets Essential. But that one is also part of your larger Adobe offering for Digital Asset Manager. This is if you have teams that are doing things within the Creative Cloud or any other systems that they can feed directly into that. This way you organize it properly, and this way will be the same repository of all your assets where the email channel or the Journey Optimizer can hook into. Moving related to content is also the ability of doing offer decisioning service. I'll be honest with you, we haven't used that service yet, but this is one of the additional value that a Journey Optimizer brings into the table, where if you're looking to enhance your offer decisioning and knowing what is the next best action, there is this service that JO has a native integration with that allows you to do these things. And then from there, in the end, it's engagement and what I would call is delivery. So this is where you have the message service sending these messages out to the endpoints. These can be either sending emails or even direct mail or mobile push or hooking into an endpoint. And this is something I think is remarkably important in the space we're in, where we're no longer only looking for triggering one thing. There could be different versions of it. There could be different endpoints. You might want to hook it into Slack. You want to hook it into your internal systems or your own homegrown tool. The APIs are powerful enough to allow you to do so. Ivan, did I miss anything here? Anything you want to add from this view?
No, I think that's great. And I think what's really important just to keep in mind here is that by centralizing the data, you're able to not only feed everything into all of your engagement workflows with Journey Optimizer, but it also touches into how we can use the same profile data and workflows and engagement data to run reports in customer journey analytics as well.
That's a great point. Yeah, it becomes the idea of reusing things. So if you build something in Journey Optimizer, that whether it's the data model or the journey itself, that can be reused for analysis later on and such. So that's pretty powerful. Okay, so let's see. This is another view. It's very similar. I like this one where you're breaking things. So it's the same story, but the idea here is within Adobe Experience Platform, you have a little bit of a view into your data lake where your data sits, and then also the profile information, which in this case is your unified profile that you define, but also on top of it or related to it is the segmentation. So one thing here that maybe some of you don't know, but the same segments that you would create with Adobe Experience Platform can be used for the real-time CDP as well as for Journey Optimizer. So if you have, and I know this has been a concern in the past where we used to say, we have many ways to create segments in different places. Well, this is a solution that helps you in centralizing the segments itself. So segments can be centralized and then used across different solutions, including Journey Optimizer. Let me jump from here into the how, right? So we know, I'm hoping now we know a little bit more about Journey Optimizer, what it does, have an idea. How do we implement it, right? Like this is something we in the beginning I had to scratch my head to be like, okay, how much work do I need to plan for this? How much time is it going to take? This is one version of approach. Ivan will touch on a different way to use it. But for us, what we had to do, we had to stand up the experience platform. So in this case, we had to figure out what are the data sources coming in? What is the schema going to look like? What is the identity? What are the namespaces? What is the consent? All the jazz, right? And then from there, we stood up the specific data sets, the feeds. And then we had now within AEP, now we have our profiles. We have the attributes associated with them. We see our unified profile and start building segments on top of it. So now that piece is done. The second piece, now you want to get Journey Optimizer ready to go. Given that we wanted to use Journey Optimizer for email, we had to configure your common things, making sure that what are the subdomains, what are the IP addresses, if there is any delegation or DNS records that need to be updated. All of that had to be set up within AJO. Even going the extra step of the unsubscription. How is that going to happen? Is there going to be one unsubscription link, or there's going to be a page that gives them certain details? And then having the IP warm-up, especially if we're working with a new IP for Journey Optimizer and going through the full testing and validation. So that's from email. The second piece was for SMS. SMS itself, today, there is a native integration with Cinch, I believe, and there is plans on to expand that to other vendors as Twilio and others. But in cases where these integrations don't exist, you want to consider building these. And given that AJO is very API friendly, and a lot of these other vendors, especially SMS, is in many cases I see them very API friendly as well, because they're waiting for a trigger with a payload to send, for example, a message. You want to make sure these configurations are in place. And finally, if in our case, we wanted to use Journey Optimizer to trigger push notification. I really didn't want to have another system doing push notification. I want to centralize this. So in that, we just had to go through the regular steps of getting the certification for iOS, for Google, making sure that we had the configuration, the SDK itself, which is, in our case, we use the mobile app SDK, and that was part of what used to be called Launch. Now, I don't know what it's called now, Tags, or Activation. What is it called now, Ivan?
Data collection.
Data collection.
But I still call it Launch.
Launch. Yes.
Yeah.
So within there is a Journey Optimiser extension that we need to set up and just follow the steps. And I want to say, like, Adobe actually has done a great job in documenting these pieces step by step. So I put a link here that you guys, after you definitely can check out and see if you want to see this implementation on your own. But Ivan, this is one way of doing things. Obviously, AJO is also, the way it was created is in a way for it to be deployed quicker than standing up AAP fully and such. So you want to talk a little bit on how you see that happening as well?
Yeah, so we have a couple different features coming out soon that will let you use different APIs and kind of copy objects back and forth. And we found that if you have some standard data models, we're going to have some out-of-the-box schemas available for you, so that if you're looking to import data into the CDP, that it can kind of conform to sort of industry standard schemas. But you don't necessarily have to follow kind of a prescribed set of guidelines. You can bring any kind of data attribute that you want and then use those as profile specific attributes to kind of create a tailored experience or message users based upon anything that you'd like. The beauty of the AJO setup here is to get up and running both with batch use cases as well as real-time use cases. So you can set up events from any kind of external system, whether it's a point of purchase system or another kind of business process API, and you want to use that to trigger a particular experience. That's going to be really easy to set up. You're just going to basically paste a payload in and say, these are the different keys or values that I want to trigger a journey on. And then you can take them across any number of paths using conditional values and things like that.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's actually super helpful, because not every client is going to be is going to be using it in the same fashion, right? So I've seen some clients who are interested in the orchestration layer of the AJO, and the ability for them to trigger it by an offline, I would say, trigger. Doesn't have to be necessarily someone qualified for a segment, but hey, I know someone who have done this action and I want to get them on this journey. And then you're able to send all that information within that trigger with the payload, with the details in it, and then that will be carried over throughout the journey. So, yeah, I find that very helpful. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit on why I like Journey Optimiser and why we're using it. We're seeing it more used with clients. I think the centralized data model is one of my biggest driver. I've used, and we still use, Adobe Campaign, whether it's standard or V8, for a lot of our clients. But specifically with V8, the struggle that we had was maintaining a data model across. If we want to use it with AAP, let's say we want to use it as Adobe Campaign as an email provider and AAP as the data centricity and profile, it doesn't work that way. You really need to have the data model kind of replicated between both, just because that's how systems work. And that's actually the case in many other ESPs. I think Journey Optimiser, with what we have seen, they truly centralize that data model. and centralize the segment creation. So this way, I don't have to worry about multiple data flowing from one system to another. No, it's actually everything is, I can look at the profile, I can look at the schema, all of this within, whether it's an experience platform or in JO, it's the same. That's great. So that simplifies things. One of the things also related to that was when we send emails out or a push notification, there's always that signal, right, of someone receiving it, someone clicking on it, what did they do? If you really want to see this full view, usually you used to have to make sure you're grabbing the logs from the system that send the email, grab it and stitch it back to the original data that you have. It's possible, we've done it, whether it was exporting and importing and stitching, but it's also, it's a lot of effort. It takes a lot of depth work. Within Journey Optimizer and AAP, it's actually pleasantly surprising that that happens on its own. So when you set up Journey Optimizer, there are schemas that are automatically enabled. You don't even have to touch them. They're enabled that automatically collect the data that is coming back, and data coming back into their own data sets, into their own schema, and they stitch very well into the profile. So now I find it so, it's really fun and nice when you look at someone's profile within Adobe, and you're able now to see their web events, their interaction to emails, and any of the onboarded data you pushed in. So now you truly, maybe for the first time, I'm seeing a truly unified profile that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time doing an implementation. So that's an amazing feature. I think the integration with the asset management makes things also a lot easier. Our team has been enjoying that because when it comes to the email designer, it's literally drag and drop, but also the ability to go in and say, here's the asset that I want to use. And then all the teams that are working together can reuse the same assets if we're going from one email to another. The speed of the ability to create a journey and ability to test it, like I find sending tests and proof with the idea, they have this feature of doing tests and you have test profiles, very easy, very intuitive. So in conclusion, for me, what I see Journey Optimizer doing is it's simplifying my way of bringing data to enable journeys, the ability for me to create journeys a lot faster. And then, and that actually makes it easier for me to get people trained and self-service in a way. It's a very intuitive platform. And then finally, the reporting piece. So not only that, you don't need CJA, like Journey Analytics, to do the reporting. There is very powerful reporting that is within Journey Optimizer. If you are looking to go beyond, the nice thing is that data feeds into data sets that Journey Analytics can hook into and bring into that and do more reporting. But that's from me, Ivan. Anything that you see or you heard from other clients on why they love JO so much?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on a lot of the points there. I think some of the strengths there is that you have all of these solutions kind of interconnected, and with a lot of other platforms, or even with, kind of previous generations of the Adobe solutions, you had to kind of jump into different solutions to accomplish different tasks. And with Journey Optimizer, the idea here is that we're giving you a single dashboard. Even the stuff that we put into the customer data platform, the schemas and the data sets and the profile views, you can access those right within the same tool. So you can log into it. We have a vast amount of different levels of permissions and controls so that you can determine who in your organization can see what and access what. But from offer decisioning to message creation to journey optimization to the assets essentials, everything can all be accessed within a single dashboard and reporting as well, so that you spend more time creating those engagements and less time hopping around different solutions and learning different tools. So I think that's a huge strength there. And then you mentioned how Asset Essentials makes it easy to drag and drop. What's great about this is this is like the first time where we're integrating the AEM DAM directly into the Journey Optimiser platform without a separate license. So AEM Assets Essentials comes with Journey Optimiser. If you have a previous license with AEM for full-blown data asset management, you can bring that as well, so we can access that same asset library within AJO. So there's a lot of features there. And then you spoke to the scale. The scale is from a push architecture standpoint and from an email architecture standpoint. These were rebuilt from the ground up for speed and scale. So we're truly, aiming to be, very little latency, high throughput, high volume, real-time engagement.
Yep. Yeah. And I think like the asset thing is crucial, because in so many other times we had to copy like a URL, right? And say like, this is the URL, send it over, and then you put it in. Yeah, this solves for it, which I think is really nice, because this less errors, and also you can see it right away when you're building an email. All right, so I think I want to move and spend a little time here. I know we're a little bit behind on our schedule, but I want to spend some time talking about this elephant in the room: Journey Optimiser and Adobe Campaign, right?
Yeah.
I want to say that I will set it, and then we'll get into a discussion, Ivan. There's really no easy answer to say, hey, shall I move to Journey Optimiser? Shall I stay with Adobe Campaign version V8, for example? It really varies from one use case to another, and on what you're doing, right?
Right.
So this is where I think it's healthy to have that discussion and have that idea and conversation of saying like, okay, what's my plans? What I'm trying to accomplish long term? Does this help me or not? But in general, let's talk through some of these high-level discussion points. So one of them is, if I am today an Adobe Campaign V8 customer, for me to consider moving to Journey Optimiser, like what would be the biggest driver for that? Ivan, what would you think will be a biggest driver?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all depends, right? So if you think about Campaign Classic or Campaign V8, right, that is a product that has a long history with a lot of features built up over the lifespan of that product, and it's something that we continue to invest in and develop upon. Really, what it comes down to is like, if you are looking to go beyond what you can do within Campaign V8 and you want to start hitting some real-time use cases, there's definitely a path for you to use both solutions together and say, I want to handle all of my batch campaigns through V8. I want to start to explore some real-time use cases through Journey Optimiser, and that's definitely something that we have customers doing today.
But would that complicate the idea of now I have audiences across both? Like, how would you solve for that without
Right, that kind of hits a little bit on your last chat bubble there, right? So in order for that to work, in order for those two solutions to kind of play together, we're kind of bridging those audiences across Campaign and Journey Optimiser by way of the CDP, right? So you're basically taking batch imports of those audiences into the platform, enriching those audiences with all of the Journey Optimiser data, and then doing a sync back into Campaign, right? So we're kind of using the experience platform and the centralized profile there to kind of help us orchestrate across both of those solutions.
Got it. Okay. So there is a world where these two can, like you mentioned, split the batch to be still with campaign, and then have the real time, the one-to-one, and maybe also the push and SMS that can all happen, because those are more like one-to-one, can happen directly with Journey Optimizer.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Do you see, I mean, is there going to be a world that you guys see I know with Adobe Campaign, it's it is a heavy product, but it's super powerful, right? Especially if you are doing a lot of customization. If your data, there's a lot of, like, it's not, the data is very hard to recreate based on segmentation, and there's a lot more to it. But do you see a world where we can replicate some of the workflows that happen in Adobe Campaign to be happening be transferred to be like segmentation that can feed into Journey Optimizer?
I mean, it all depends on the use cases, right? So there's definitely ways to create the orchestration and the profile data, and then bring that into AEP, right? And then build campaigns that are similar to what you have inside of Campaign within Journey Optimizer. I think what it really depends on is the Journey Optimizer product itself, from an email delivery perspective, still has a lot of catch up to do, to where we can hit a lot of the same use cases that are available in Campaign Classic. So staying with Campaign for those types of workflows and use cases makes a lot of sense. Where we're going to start to see expansion is the way that Journey Optimizer works with offer decisioning, some of the AI and machine learning that we can do on top of the platform, the web channel that we're going to be bringing in, later this year. Those are all things where we see, an expansion beyond just some of the kind of the use cases that we would consider for Campaign Classic. So that's where we really start to tell that story of, is it, if I have Campaign Classic, maybe I want to look at a better together type solution where I can use both to hit different specific use cases.
Yeah, I would say I agree with your approach. I think if I were to advise my clients, I would say, one, assess what you're using in Adobe Campaign V8 today, because in some cases, unfortunately, some clients are using just the bare minimum, where they might want to reconsider if those are enough reasons to stay in V8. If not, then assess how would Journey Optimizer compare to those. So what is important to you? It might be, I mean, a lot of us want to do multi-channel orchestrated journeys, right?
Yeah.
As this is pretty, it sounds great. It's super difficult, even getting people in the same room to agree on what that journey would look like, because this is not email only, this is not direct mail only, this is not push notification, and in an organization, these are different teams managing all of these. So if your organization is ready to do something like this, and you are on Adobe Campaign V8, assess what would be the pros and cons of moving to a Journey Optimizer, and whether what you just mentioned, having Journey Optimizer and Adobe Campaign working together, can either be a stopgap in the beginning until you're fully migrated, or that would be the reality of saying, okay, I'm going to do my orchestrated one-to-one everything in Journey Optimizer, but then I have emails that we know these audiences that are going to go out every day at a certain time. Adobe Campaign, especially with V8, the throughput is way better than V7. Then we can continue with that. So that could be, I see a scenario happening.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, great. All right, so let's move on to the next topic. And this is more of the tips and tricks of what we've seen with Journey Optimizer. As you're doing the implementation, and Ivan early on told me about it, like, make sure when it comes to the DNS and subdomain delegation, give it enough time, because this is not only dependent on Adobe, but it's also dependent on your IT team to make sure that things are set up properly. And I want to stress on that. Plan ahead so that you're not delayed in that process. Test profiles is a very nice feature. This is not new, but in Journey Optimizer, it's really easy to set up. We found it a lifesaver in doing a lot of testing and also help us in the initial IP warm-up, where we were able to quickly proof and then move on to launching. Journey Optimizer has its own, I would say, functionality within the Journey canvas. We use the conditions, which allows you to split. There's different ways you can split based on a data source or others. But in some cases, depending on how your data is set up, and this really varies from one implementation to another. But in our case, we noticed that sometimes the conditions where we're trying to split audiences within a condition, within a journey, doesn't always work very well. And because of that, there's ways around it, but make sure you are testing these early on and then finding what is the next best approach. So for example, in our case, we found instead of creating these particular conditions that could be complex, instead we created another layer of segmentation where within the condition, we just had a selection of saying, are you in this segment? Then you branch into this other journey. If you're not in this segment, now you go into another one. So I would just say, that's something important. The templates, I think, I don't know, Ivan, that's something you guys are working on to allow the messages to be templatized, right? Do we want to talk a little about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff coming there. So there's going to be the default pre-canned templates that are great for kind of getting started and using some very basic skeletal type templates. Then there's, the ability to save like little snippets of your design into what we call saved expression libraries, kind of things like content fragments, and save your own templates are something that's coming a little bit later on this year. So we definitely have a lot of different ways of accomplishing it. You can, if you're using any kind of HTML, whether it's through Campaign or Campaign Standard, you can zip up those templates and then import them directly. So there's a lot of different ways of getting your designs into AJO and then managing it from there. But more coming on that.
Yeah, I think this is where you just need to get used to using the email designer. So there is a bit of a ramp up to use it, but it's very powerful. Quickly on some of the other things, when it comes to mobile push, Project Griffin, I think it has a different name now.
AEP Assurance.
AEP Assurance. I like that.
Or Assurance, yes. Yeah.
That it's great. This way you're able to see exactly what's happening in your app, what's going out with, and you can look at each call. Life changing. So I highly recommend it. The mobile web SDK as well as the web SDK, they're both they're still fairly new, super powerful. But when it comes to identities and data streams, if you're new to the space, make sure you're covering all your bases. There's really good documentation, but it's very easy to miss things. So that I would say, make sure these are set up properly and you're testing along the way, every step. Journeys themselves, there is multiple ways to trigger them. One of the common ways we use to trigger journeys is using a segment, whether reading from a segment or if you're qualified for a segment, you get into the journey. These are not the only ways, but they're common. With that being said, there is today a lag in when a segment is being created to when it can be used. Not to say that the segments cannot be evaluated in real time, but the use of the segment the first time there's a lag. So for that, and I know Ivan and Jeremy are working on a feature that will solve for this, but in the meantime, you want to plan ahead for your segments so that you're not slowing down any of your email deployments or any of your journey deployments. Other piece is the segment taxonomy. Today, like I said, segments are centralized. So segments for real-time CDP, segments for analysis, if you're going to use it in data science workspace or query service, and also segments that for Journey Optimiser. All of them are in the same bucket. So it's critical to have a right taxonomy so that you're able to know which segment is what is being used for analysis versus being used for deployment, so that no one is changing segments and impacting any of your journeys. We talked enough about the asset manager. Just my advice would be make sure it's well organized so that people are not just dropping content and you're like, what is this? Where do I get my content? All right, so from here, Ivan, we have 10 minutes. I know you have a lot on your roadmap, so
this is fun.
I'll give this to you.
Great. So I think we'll cover a few different topics that we have coming up for the Journey Optimiser product, and these are all this year. So this is good stuff that's coming very soon. One of these things that was just released is offer frequency capping on a per profile basis. So what's really cool about this is prior to this, we were offering the ability to do offer decisions based upon just kind of a general impression cap, right? So once this offer's been seen, 50,000 times or something like that, revert to a different offer or a fallback offer. Now we can measure this per profile. So we can say, if this user has seen this same offer, then switch it after they've seen it once or twice or 3 times, something like that. We all get this all the time when we're watching streaming TV and we see those same commercials over and over. It's kind of annoying, like switch it up, give me something new. So that's what this is going to help us do, is make sure that we're measuring it on a per profile basis so that we can change it up. Let's go to the next one. AI ranking models. So part of that is going to be based upon machine learning models that we can set up within the platform. What's really cool here is we can do auto optimization based on this, or we can do this based on a number of different rules and set this up to say based upon this segment or this region or how many times they've clicked it or they opened it or what was the engagement that they did. You can combine all of those things into a rule that will use those tracking data sets that we set up based upon the engagement automatically to then optimize the delivery of these different objects based upon those models. So a lot of power in the way that we can set some of these things up. Let's go to the next one. Message frequency rules. So this is similar to what we've had before in campaign standard, the ability to kind of do fatigue management, do some frequency capping. What's cool about this particular feature is because we're doing cross-channel orchestration, we wanted to give people the ability to not only frequency cap email or separately frequency cap push, but be able to do probably something where we can give them an overall cap and say, I don't know which channel I necessarily want to deliver this content on, but I want to make sure I'm not over soliciting these particular profiles across different channels. So lots of capabilities there. We have a lot coming in the future around rules for frequency later this year as well. Let's go to
I love this one, Ivan, by the way. This is something I see heavily used, especially across the channels. So thank you.
Yep, as we alluded to earlier, SMS authoring and reporting, that's coming into the product, starting with a native integration with Cinch. So if you have Cinch as an SMS vendor, you'll be able to author directly within AJO. You'll be able to orchestrate those SMS messages alongside push and email, do reaction-based events, get reporting, manage consent. All of that can be done right within AJO. So a lot of great stuff there. We'll be onboarding other providers like Twilio and Vibes and other vendors as well as the future or as the summer progresses. Okay. Mobile in-app messaging. this is awesome. I think this is going to be a killer feature. We've had in-app messaging across different Adobe products before. This is getting a whole revamped workflow, lots of new features, bells and whistles, where you can change the way that you want to present it. Do you want to do it as a full screen, a modal, a banner? Do you want to do custom HTML? Do you want to change the way the behavior is, the frequency it's shown, and then how you want to kind of work with your in-app messages? Really, really great. Lots of power behind this, especially because you can orchestrate it in addition to all of the other kind of channels that you're working with. Okay.
Could in-app messaging and push notification, like, could those be interchangeable in this case?
So you can have what's called local notifications or silent notifications, which is great because you can do those based upon potentially, like, if they hit a location and they may not have great signal, you don't want to send a push, you can do it as a local notification from in-app. Those get baked into the application, so they work even if they're offline. Lots of kind of really, really good stuff there. So they're a little bit interchangeable. I see them playing off of each other, right? So if you tap on a push, you can then say, based upon that engagement, that open or that click, let's launch this in-app message. Great for things like not only kind of presenting offers and things like that, but also kind of tutorials for your app. You want to show them something that's new, a new feature. You want to highlight something. There's lots of really cool stuff that can be done there.
I like that. Okay.
Content experimentation. This goes along the same kind of lines where we were talking about how we're really trying to give you a single solution where you can do a lot of activities and things without having to jump into other solutions of the platform. Being able to build into the product the ability to do content experimentation and do variants and test A/B testing right within the platform without having to jump anywhere else is going to be hugely powerful. That's something that's coming out later this year as well. So working on that. And then objectives. Objectives kind of go along the same lines as content experimentation. You can kind of reverse engineer what you're looking to achieve, what your KPIs are, and then from that, create different experimentations that should help you derive how to best achieve that objective. Direct mail, this one is going to land early this summer, I believe. So this is going to be able to take the audiences that you're building inside of AJO, orchestrate it alongside email, push those different things, and then ultimately export out a file that you can send to a service provider so that you can do kind of your direct mail channel. So there's more coming on that as well.
And I want to stress on how important this is because today, with direct mail, you're really bound by the print office on how they do things. So having the right format and such, where it becomes like an additional step, like either in some cases we're seeing it happen in the CDP, where it is being responsible to create that audience. But now if you can do it here, and that becomes part of your journey of saying some people who did not, who are not responding to email, who are not responding to push, I want to try one more time. So then you can come up to that audience and just say, here you go. And then you report on it to be like, we also did this. It's a beauty. So I'm excited that this is going to become part of it.
Yep. So you can take those same splits, those holdout groups, things like that, and say, did they open the email? Did they not? Wait a couple of days, include them in the direct mail audience. All of that is what we're hoping to be able to do.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's see what we got next.
One. Yep.
Audience orchestration. This is going to be big. So this is going to work not only within AJO, but also across the platform. So you have real-time CDP destinations for things like Facebook audiences and different social activation channels. So you're going to have the ability to orchestrate your audience and create those splits and holdout groups, include external data sources to help you enrich that audience. So it's stuff that's not only in CDP, but also is leveraging external sources to enrich that audience at the same time, and then be able to use those and leverage those and activate those across both Journey Optimiser as well as your RT CDP destination channels. So lots of really good stuff there. When you talk about the process in which it takes to create a segment and then wait for it to build. This is going to help that process greatly, because you'll be able to create audiences on the fly and then be able to use them immediately in your workflows.
I love this one.
And campaigns. So we've talked a lot about, if you've had any exposure to Journey Optimiser at all, and you look at kind of the way that it's set up, it's really great for creating complex journeys with splits and conditions and different groups, and kind of continuing you along different event-driven stuff. But if you have a need to just, I want to batch and blast this certain audience across multiple channels, then we have the campaign construct coming soon, where you're going to be able to go in, select, is this an email, is this an in-app, is this push, is this multiple channels all at once? This is the audience I want to hit. Here are my content templates, and then hit go. So it's going to be more of a single step. You're not creating a long journey here, but a single step campaign to allow you to quickly batch send deliveries to across channels. So that's coming as well, and that should help greatly reduce workflow time when you just need to get the message out to a particular audience.
But I have some good governance in there, or we're gonna get into trouble. But I like that idea. Okay, that's your last one here. Yeah.
Yes, API trigger campaign. So this is our kind of headless messaging, set of features. This is going to be awesome. So for those that are thinking about, I want to integrate with a breaking news system, or I have a sports event, and the latency is like, I don't need to compose a message. I don't need to use templates. I don't need to do anything else. I just want to say, this is the content that's going. I want to merge it with, maybe a pre-canned template. I'm just going to hit an API and I want it sent out. So this headless messaging is going to be great, because it'll take advantage of the speed and scale and the throughput that we can handle, but also allowing you to kind of just trigger it automatically via API. So that's going to be, it's been something long requested, and I think it's going to be great when we're able to finally deliver this.
Yeah, the idea of headless, I think, across the board is important, and using these fragments in email. So if we're consolidating the authoring and then ability to just send this to multiple channels, one of them is email like this, then that will be amazing. Absolutely. All right, so I know we're at time. We're a little over time, but we did cover all the content. The only thing that we didn't have enough time for is questions. Good news is this will be recorded and will be shared on our website in a week or so. Ivan, I want to thank you and thank the entire Adobe team. You guys have been extremely helpful throughout JO, but also preparing for this webinar. I hope we can do this again, maybe as these new features come up and we get to test some of these. Would love to maybe do maybe a more hands-on session showing some of how these features are being used. I think that would be great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thank you so much. Have a great one.